Uh,
This is Lee Poe, the cat. He's here with me. I hope he's not like Sarmina the Sarmina Green Eyes. Oh, anyway, we're here to read more of Mariel of Redwall by Brian Jakes. Let him go, I guess. We last time we left off, we were on finished chapter 3. Now we're on chapter 4. I got this for Easter, so ever back in the early '90s. So ever since then, Redwall, springtime, Easter time, and of course nowrooz, Persian New Year time, for the first day of spring, reminds me of Redwall, and so it gets me into a good Redwall feel. Chapter 4. Chapter 4. Dawn arrived, clad in hushed rosiness upon the wake of storm-torn night. Abbot Bernard had not lain abed. He was up and about. Concern for his beloved Redwall had driven him sleep from his mind. The ravages of gale, force winds, and rains would need repairing. He made swift tour of inspection, finishing up on the east battlements, leaning back upon the strongly hewn stones. Bernard allowed himself a sigh of relief. There was not much that any weather conditions, no matter how severe, could do to the abbey. However, there were broken branches and wrecked tree limbs overhanging the ramparts to the east and the north, with here and there some ill-fated sapling or hollow woodland monarch toppled against the walls. Inside the grounds had largely been protected by the outer structure, a few crops flattened, fruit bushes in disarray, and a loose window shutter on the gatehouse blown awry. The Father Abbot descended the wall steps thankfully and went to summon Formol to head a repair crew. They could attend to the damage after breakfast. The calm after the storm also had its effect upon the inmates of Redwall Abbey. Young creatures tumbled out of the Abbey building into the sunlit morning, whooping and shouting. They teemed into the orchard to gather fruit brought down by the winds of the gale. The Otter twins, Bag and Run, frisked and bounded around the apple and pear trees to the strawberry patch that lay on their backs, squeaking with laughter as they gobbled up the juicy fruit, inventing fictitious reasons as to why the berries were lying there. Look Look what was blown down from the strawberry trees by the wind last night. Durry Quill, Gabe Quill's little nephew, joined them. He sat in the strawberry patch, trying to decide which was the biggest berry, eating all the possible candidates as he listened to the otters. Durry was not at all sure whether he should believe that they had come from a strawberry tree. Strawberries? I don't see no strawberry trees. Where be they? Bag coughed hard to stop himself tittering. He put on a serious face as he explained the logic of fictitious strawberry trees to the puzzled little Durry. Hee, rumph. What, you've never seen a strawberry tree? Dear, oh dear. Why, they're great giant things with blue speckly leaves. Very light, of course. Only weigh as much as 2 goose feathers. That's why the wind blowed 'em all away. Whoosh! Straight away at the top of the abbey walls. The gullible Durry looked from one to the other, half convinced. Run nodded serious agreement and continued the story. "'S right, I see it for myself from the dormitory window. Way away they blowed all those poor old great strawberry trees, carried off by the wind to the Gongleboo Mountains, where the Gruggly Pods live. A half-eaten strawberry dropped from Durry's open mouth. Gruggly Boo's mountain, where Gruggly Pods lived. Where'd be that? Under a nearby pear tree, Dandin stood paws on hips with his friend, young Saxtus, the harvest mouse. Both smiled as they listened to the 2 otters, leading Durry Quill astray with their tall tails. Saxtus bit into a white windfall pear and grimaced. Don't know why we came here to eat fruit. Most of these windfalls aren't even ripe yet. Taste this pear, hard as a rock. Dandin sat down with the otters and Dury. No, thanks. I'll try my luck with those berries that fell from the strawberry trees. He looked over the top of a large strawberry at Bag and Run. Strawberry trees, indeed. You two should be ashamed of yourselves, telling a poor little hedgehog about such whopping great fibs. Saxtus sat down with him, keeping his normally solemn face quite straight. Dandin's right, you know. Otters that tell lies get carried off by the big pink water boggle. Bag tossed the strawberry into the air. It missed his mouth and bounced off his nose as he remarked airily. Oh, the pink water boggle. We've been carried off twice this summer by him, haven't we, Run? Run giggled. I'll say we have. We told him so many whoppers. He said he's not carrying us off any more. From the direction of the damson and plum trees, Simeon's voice interrupted. Saxtus, Dandin, Brother Hubert wants you for your Redwall history and recording lessons. He is not getting any younger, and someday we will need a new recorder. Traditions must be upheld. Come on, young scamps. I know you're there. The two young mice dropped flat in the strawberry patch, Dandin holding a paw to his lips. Shh! It's Simeon. Lie low. He might go away. The steady paw steps of the blind herbalist came nearer. Simeon called again. Come on, you two. I know you're hiding in the strawberry patch. Saxtus tugged Bag's tail and winked at the young otter. Bag winked back as he called out. It's Bag and Run, Simeon. We're the only ones here. Simeon appeared chuckling. I'm going to count to 3, and if you two otters and that nephew of Quill's aren't off to the Abbey kitchen to help with the chores, I'll tell Mother Melis to come and fetch you with a hazel twig. As for Saxtus and Dandin, unless you want to give you an extra lecture on the value of nightshade and campion as herbs, you'll come out now and stop lying there trying to breathe lightly. I may not have eyesight, but my ears and nose have never deceived me yet. Saxtus and Dandin stood up ruefully, wiping away dew from their novice habits. Wordlessly they followed Simeon to the gatehouse at the entrance to the outer walls. Simeon strolled boldly ahead, a smile hovering about his lips. Pity the strawberry trees got blown away in the storm. Oh, Ramical, sorry. Got blown away in the storm. You could have climbed up one and hidden in its branches. Brother Hubert sat at his desk in the gatehouse. Though Redwall Abbey was of no great age, he was surrounded by old books, parchments, and scrolls. Dust was everywhere. It settled in layers on furniture and shelf alike, providing a fine patina to the tomes and volumes piled willy-nilly, coating the yellowed parchments and writing materials, lazily drifting in a slow swirl around the morning sunlit shafts flooding through the window. Hubert kept his head bent to the task of recording the Abbey's daily life, the long feathered quill pen waving back and forth as he wrote. Saxtus and Dandin stood in front of him, listening to the scratch of quill on parchment, keeping a respectful silence until Brother Hubert spoke to them. Looking over the top of his spectacles, Hubert blinked severely. What is punctuality? Saxtus spoke out. The respect we show other creatures by being on time. You two young brothers have more respect for strawberries than you do for me. Is that not right? Saxtus and Dandin stood in silence. Brother Hubert put aside his pen. Tell me in turn our Abbey charter. Dandin, who may begin? Dandin swallowed hard, looking at the ceiling for inspiration, shuffled his paws, and began hesitantly. Er, to be brothers and sisters of peace and goodwill, be living together in harmony under the protection of Redwall Abbey, forsaking all unnecessary forms of violence, not only to mossflower, its trees and grasses, flowers and insects, but to all living creatures. Brother Hubert nodded at Saxtus to continue. He did so with much more confidence and less hesitancy than Dandin. To help and comfort the dispossessed, to help and comfort the dispossessed, harbour orphans and waifs, offer shelter to all creatures alike, give clothing, warmth and food to any beast or creature that is deemed in need of such, to educate, to learn, particularly in the healing arts, comfort the sick, nurse the injured, and help the wounded. Dandin received Brother Hubert's nod to continue from Saxtus. Help the wounded, let's see now, oh yes, to take our food from the earth and replenish the land by caring for it, husbanding crops and living in harmony with the seasons always, to honour and protect our friends and brethren, only raising paw to do battle when our life at Redwall is threatened by treachery and the shadow of war. At these times, every Redwall creature should show courage, fortitude, and obedience to the Father Abbot, albeit the taking of another life must always be justified, and never carried out in a wanton manner. Brother Hubert came out from behind his desk. Well done, Saxtus. Very clearly spoken. As for you, young Dandin, you stammer and hesitate. You seem to have difficulty in remembering, except that is, until you come to the path that deals with treachery, war, and battle. Dandin looked down at the floor, gnawing at the side hairs of his paw. Brother Hubert leaned back against the desk, took a beaker of cold drool, blew some dust from its rim, and took a sip before continuing. Right, Saxtus, tell me what has been going on in the Great Hall for 3 seasons now. Saxtus stroked his chin thoughtfully. Going on. Great Hall. Is that the making of some cloth picture? Is that what you mean, Brother Hubert? Brother Hubert polished his spectacles upon his habit sleeve. Yeah. I don't know. Are you asking me or telling me? My, what a pair of little puddin-heads. See if they all can tell me, Dandin. This time it was Dandin's turn to brighten up. In Great Hall for the past 3 seasons, actually it's 3.5, but brothers and sisters, also many woodlanders, are combining their skills to make a wonderful tapestry. This will depict our founder, Martin the Warrior, showing how he battled with villainous vermin, foxes, rats, stoats, ferrets, and weasels, even a huge wildcat like that awful Sarmina. Martin the Warrior wasn't bothered by those evil beasts. Oh, no. He got his famous sword, buckled on his bright armour, took up his shield, and drove them from Mossflower country. Wham! Blat! He whirled his deadly blade. The rats screamed. The foxes dived into hiding. Swish, chop! Martin was right after them, and he whirled his sword and... Enough, you bloodthirsty young scamp. How do you know all this? Dandin smiled. A reckless light burned in his bright eyes. Because my father's father, was Gonf, the prince of mouse thieves. Martin the Warrior's famous companion, who could steal the nose from under your eyes while you were watching, and he was a great ballad maker. Brother Hubert nodded wisely. Yes, indeed, an unusual fellow by all accounts. Thief, rogue, warrior, quester, but all for the good of other creatures. He married the lovely Columbine, if my memory serves me rightly, so he could not have been too bad a creature. Never let me catch you stealing, young Dandin. Wait, there was something I meant to tell you. Ah, yes, I have it here somewhere. He began rummaging through piles of old records until the dust flew, finally coming up with a small object. By this time, all three were coughing and sputtering amidst the dust. Hubert shepherded them outside into the cool shadow of the ramparts before he presented Dandin with the item. It was a small flute made from the piece of straight apple wood, bored out by a red-hot iron rod, and wonderfully carved. It had an ornamental little G near the mouthpiece. Let me see if I can find it around here somewhere. I think I know where that flute is. Where did I put that? Where did I keep that? Oh, here it is. Oh, yes, Dandin, I got the flute right here. Yes, there's the flute, Dandin. The G right next to the mouthpiece. I was looking through some ancient records, Brother Hubert explained. They said that the family of Gaunt lived down at old St. Ninian's Church for 6 generations before Gaunt moved away from Redwall Abbey. However, he was presented with a flute by Abbess Germaine, our first Abbey mother. But apparently Gaunt thought it was far too splendid and fancy for him. He preferred a reed flute, so he left this behind. I think this is the flute. It carries his initial and looks very old. I'm sure it belongs rightly to you, Dandin. Do you think you can play it? Dandin gazed at the flute, his eyes shining. I'll certainly try, brother. Hubert dusted his habit before returning to the gatehouse. Good. Perhaps we'll hear you at the abbot's midsummer jubilee feast. Saxtus squinted at the sun. When's that, brother? 3 days hence, though some of the older brothers and sisters have been planning it for quite a while now. Our Father Abbot is very modest and does not want to cause too much fuss, so we have kept it quiet. We didn't want to get you young ones too excited. Still, I suppose you've got to know at some point. Both young mice leapt for joy, hugging each other, laughing aloud at the prospect of the great event. Hooray! Up at Bernard's Jubilee Feast, Redwall! Brother Hubert's dry, dusty old features broke into a wide grin. Go on now, be off with the pair of you. No doubt you'll be needed to help with the preparations. Sister Sage was not on duty serving breakfast that morning. She took herself for a breath of fresh air on the ramparts, enjoying the soft breeze that drifted over moss-flower woods. She came down from her morning stroll along the wall-top to join Brother Hubert. Together they watched the 2 young mice hopping and leaping like wild crickets across the sunlit lawn and flower beds toward the Abbey kitchens. Sister Sage chuckled and shook her head. Cowslips! Look at those 2 young uns, would you? It makes you feel good to be alive on a summer tide. With that she hopped off after them, capering madly despite her long seasons. Brother Hubert attempted a small caper until dust arose from his habit. His glasses fell off. He looked about quickly to see no creature had been watching, then hurried into his gatehouse. Chapter 5. Chapter 5. The midday sun glinted off the waters of the far northwest sea as thick-headed revellers from the previous night hauled anchors to sail out and scour the seas or range the coast in their constant search for plunder and booty, slaves and trinkets. Gabor the Wild watched them from the high window of his banqueting hall, Waveblade, Blacksail, Rathelm, and Greenfang. 4 good craft laden with rakings and scrapings of seas So oceans murder us all. Kabul had conferred the captaincy of the Green Fang on Gartail, an up-and-coming member of the Sea Rat Brethren, but Dole and wholly servile to his master Gabul, lord of all waters. Dull Gartail might be, but Gabul knew that it would not stop him gossiping to the master of the Dark Queen. Saltar, brother of Bludrig, Gartail knew that the Dark Queen habitually ranged the seas to the south. He would make sure his path crossed with Saltar. There was little doubt the Corsair master of the Dark Queen would hear the tale of his brother's death, chapter and verse. Gabul tore at a leg of roasted kittiwake and chewed reflectively. Saltar had the reputation of being a hard sea rat to cross, though they had never matched blades. Gabul knew Saltar to be a Corsair hooked fighter, using a vicious metal hook to impale opponents before slaying them with his curved sword. Gabul spat the meat away and hurled the kittiwake leg out of the window, watching it bounce off rocks on the sheer face until it hit the sea below. He laughed slyly. Two could play at that game, taking a long dagger from his waist sash. Gabul went to the far end of the hall, a coloured cloth well hanging, held outward by the wooden rail near the ceiling, reached from on high down to the floor. Gabul pushed it to one side and found the crack in the stonework behind it. He jammed the long dagger, handle first, into the crack so that it was wedged, with the blade pointing outward, then let the wall hanging fall back into place. Though he was a renowned fighter, and a fearless one, Gabul never took chances, particularly since the incident and with the mousemaid. Standing back, Gabul surveyed the trap. Good. The wall hanging looked like any other in the hall, perfectly harmless. Now his restless eye was caught by the great bell. He wandered around its wide perimeter, fascinated by the object. Surely no sea rat king had ever taken such a magnificent prize. Gabul pinched it with his long curving claws and sounded it by banging his rings and bracelets upon its brazen surface, amazed by the clear musical noises it made, tingling, humming, and vibrating. He bared his lips. Leaning close in, he bit lightly at it, making his gold teeth reverberate with the echoes from the bell. Gabul stroked the cool, curving object as he crooned softly. "Speak me, beauty. We must get to know each other. Well, I am Gabul the Wild, your owner, but you need not fear me. Your voice will call to my fleet one day. Your tones will terrify my enemies. You will be the voice of Gabul when I set you atop my fort and let your tongue swing free. Then you will boom out across the waves so that all the seas will know Gabul is king." On a sudden impulse, Gabul dashed off, slamming the door behind him. He took the downward stairs, 3 at a time, deeper and deeper into the depths of his own lair. 2 guards were standing at the entrance to the prison cells. Gabul whirled upon them with a snarl. "Get out of my sight and leave me alone here." As the guards fled, Gabul made his way to a cell that was little more than a cage. He lunged against the bars, grinning at the pitiful creature locked up inside. "Well, bellmaker, ready to work for me yet?" Joseph the bellmaker was chained by his waist to the wall. The floor of the subterranean cell was awash with sea water which seeped through from outside. Joseph had once been a powerful, well-fleshed mouse, but now his cheeks were sunken and dark circles formed around his eyes. Starvation and ill-treatment had taken their ruthless toll on the bellmaker, though as he raised his head, both eyes burned with remorseless hatred for his captor. "I would sooner be eaten by the fishes in the sea than serve you, rat," Gabul commanded, as if he had not heard the prisoner. "You You can do it, Joseph. Oh, I know. Oh, you can do it, Joseph. You can do it, Joseph. I know you can. A bell tower strong enough to hold the great bell right on top of my fort, where the whole world will hear it. Joseph pulled forward, straining at the chain in the enclosed space, his voice shaking with pent-up rage. Never would I not soil my paws with your mad ideas and evil schemes. That bell was made for the Badger, the Lord of Salamanstrom, enemy of all sea scum. It will never ring for you. Gabool drew his sword and clashed it against the cell bars. Hell's guts, do you think I care for what it was made for, you fool? The bell is mine now, mine to do what I like with it. Its voice will sound for me alone. I, Gabool, the warlord of the waves, say this. Joseph slumped down, shaking his head in despair. You're mad, completely insane and evil. Kill me, do what you want with me, I don't care any more. Gabool sheathed his sword. Drawing close to the bars, he whispered low. And your daughter? The bell-maker's face betrayed the agony his mind was suffering. No, you wouldn't harm her. You couldn't. She's so young and don't you dare hurt my daughter. Gabool now sorely regretted drowning the bell-maker's daughter. Still, if the old buffoon thought he was alive, there might be a bit of fun here. Gabool decided to toy with his victim. If you build my bell tower, I will let you see her again, but not until you've carried out the work. Joseph tugged at the chain. He bit his lip until blood showed, torn by the decision he knew he had to make. Gabool, listen. I would not put a single stone top another for you. Why? Because it would mean death, torture, or slavery for countless other good creatures. Don't you understand, Rat? My conscience would not let me, after I saw what they did to the captain and crew of our ship where sea rats captured us. I know it means that I may never see my young one again. It tears my heart apart, but I must do the right thing for the sake of others. Gabool summoned up all his cunning, his black soul driving him out to wickedness, belaying the smile on his face as he threw his claws wide. Ha ha! Very stubborn, Joseph, but I can see that you're a good creature. Sometimes I wish I'd never been born wicked, but decent like you. I suppose I'll have to think of something else now. But hark, Bellmaker, I'm sure you'd like to see your daughter again, wouldn't you, matey? Tears of gratitude beaded in the unsuspecting prisoner's eyes. She means more to me than anything. Please let me see her. Gabool took the keys from a wall spike. Hell's gates! Oh, I must be getting soft in my old age. Come on now, then. He stood in the banqueting hall. Barbarian and bellmaker. Joseph looked around him, dragging his chains as he did. Where is she? Gabool touched the great bell with his sword. Not so fast, shipmate. If you won't build me a bell tower, will at least tell me what these little pictures and strange words around the top and bottom of my bell mean? Joseph shuffled anxiously around the bell, his mind preoccupied with thoughts. He just thought that, thoughts of his daughter as he reluctantly read off the rhyme at his face. Joseph and Mariel remind me of Pippi rescuing her father, Ephraim Longstocking, from Jacques the Knife and Blood's Vent in the South Seas. Never mind. The pirates were trying to get him to reveal something or do something for them, just like that. Anyway, I will sing with Joseph read off the rhyme at his pace. I will ring for wedding times when two hearts unite. I will toll the hours out all daytime and through night. I will wake good creatures up from their beds each morning. or toll when they're in danger, a clear and brazen warning. For all the family, son and daughter, husband and good wife, I will boom a sad farewell when they must leave this life. For many great occasions, for many different reasons, listen, and my voice you'll hear throughout the changing seasons. Though I may boom, clang, peal, or toll, command and use me well, but hark, beware the evil ones who would misuse this bell. Kabul stared hard at Joseph. Trash! I'll have it filed off one day. What about the little drawings and fixtures round the top? What do you mean, bell-maker? Joseph spread his shackled paws. Only the Lord of Salamanstrand knows that. He gave me a parchment with those drawn upon it. Who knows what goes through the minds of the great Badger Lords of the Fire Mountain? They're creatures of destiny. I've told you all I know. Now can I see my daughter? Kabul led him to the open window. Of course, matey. I can't show you the exact spot where she lies, but I can show you how to find her. For Kabul it was but the work of a moment. One swift push. In the late afternoon, the mousemaid cast a long shadow as she wandered the deserted beach alone. Hunger, thirst, and attacks of myriad gnats and sandflies had wakened and forced her to desert the hiding place. Over one shoulder she still carried the knotted rope. A long line of paw prints in the sand behind her emphasized the desolation of sea, sand, and sky, seemingly inhabited by predatory seabirds. She had tried gnawing at some young seaweed washed up on the tide line, but the heavy salt taste in the maiden's dry, swollen mouth caused her to spit it away. Swaying slightly, she shielded her eyes from the hot orb of the sun and gazed about. Fresh water was nowhere to be had. Turning inland, she made her weary way towards a large outcrop of sand dunes to the south. Some perverse dogged spirit drove the mousemaid onward, though often she would be toppled over by the hot, shifting sand of the dunes. Rolling downhill, she would pick herself up, wipe grit from her eyes, and begin climbing again. It was on top of one difficult dune she encountered the first sign of life that was not a seabird. It was a small lizard, eyes half closed, basking in the heat. The reptile did a sideways shuffle, watching her warily. The maiden tried several times to communicate, managing only a croaking noise. The lizard's head weaved from side to side as it snapped bad-temperedly at her. You're not a frog. You'll make frog noise. What do you want? The mousemaid managed to gasp out a single word. Water! The small lizard moved its head up and down, its throat pulsating. Water far away. You're not a lizard. You'll die soon and never make up to drink water too far. So now they eat you. She followed the creature's upward nod. Gulls were beginning to circle overhead, the scavengers of the shore. Sensing when a living thing was becoming weaker and more defenseless, the maid grasped the knotted rope and swung it, calling at the sky in a hoarse voice. I'm not finished yet. You'll see. When she looked down, the lizard had gone. With other blackwood clans, she descended the other side of the dune, half stumbling, half falling. The foot of the dune was in shadow. Before her lay a sandy, flat land dotted with scrub and coarse grass. The little mousemaid rested a while in the welcoming shade. Idly her paw sank into the sand as she leaned back. Suddenly she sat bolt upright. The sand was firm and damp just beneath the surface. Realization she was not on the seaward side of the dunes brought with it the shining hope of one precious thing. Water! Scrambling dizzily, her strength failing rapidly, the maid began digging with all her paws. Soon she was rewarded by darker, damp sand. Her paws made a delicious scraping noise as she tossed sand out of the shallow hole, digging with the urgency of desperation. She was finally rewarded With one wet paw, she sat sucking her paw as the moisture seeped through the ground into the hole, forming a small, muddy pool. Throwing herself flat, the little mousemaid shoved her head into the hole and drank greedily, disregarding the gritty sand and ooze, as life-giving water flowed down her throat. New vitality surged through her, gurgling with delight. She lifted her head and found herself staring into the predatory eye of a gannet that had been sneaking up on her. Thwack! Thwop! With eye-blurring speed, she belted the knotted rope twice into the bird's face. It stumbled, fell over, stick-like, legs buckling under it. The mousemaid advanced, and swinging her weapon with battle light in her eyes, a clear, angry voice. "Come on! What do you want? The water or me? Come on, I'll fight you, you great featherhead!" The twirling knot struck the gannet a further 3 times before it managed to flop into the air with a half-stunned squawk. The little mousemaid felt the blood thrumming in her veins. She tore up a nearby plant and shook it at the sky. Plant, not plant. Plant means child. Children. Welsh. Never mind. A plant. Stupid. That goes for all of you. I'll kill the next one that comes after me, do you hear? She found herself shouting at an empty evening sky. The birds had gone in search of less ferocious prey. Inspecting the plant she had pulled from the ground, she noticed that the root was attached to a fat white tuber. Without further hesitation, she began munching upon it. The tuber tasted good, something like raw turnip. Evening gave way to night as the maid sat at the foot of the dune, bathing the wound on her head with a corner of her burlap smock which had been soaked in water from her new-found well, dabbing at the cut with one paw and devouring a root held in the other. The mousemaid talked aloud to herself, enjoying the sound of her own voice. "No name, no memory, no idea where I am. Ha! I know, I'll call myself Storm, because it was the storm that brought me here. Yes, Storm, I like that." She held the rope up and twirled it. "And you are my faithful gull-whacker." There, we've both got new names now. This is good. I've got you, the shade from my sand tomb, water and food. Storm settled down in the sand as the warm summer night closed in on her. "Wish I knew who I really was," though her voice sounded small and lonely amid the scrub and desolation. A pale golden moon peeped over the dunes at the little mousemaid sleeping by the foot of the hill, clutching a piece of knotted rope, for all the world like some infant in slumber, nursing a favourite toy. We'll end there for now. Of Mariel of Redwall by Brian Jacques. I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.